Hey, Jason here from Theme Punch. In this video, we'll discuss some of the new responsive options for Slider Revolution 5.0. So here I have a very basic slider setup. It's just a single slide slider with just a background image and one content layer right here. And I have this running on a modified version of the 2015 theme. So if we head over to the Slider's main admin page, you can see that I have version 5.0.5 installed. So if you don't have this, go ahead and update, and that way you can see what I'm seeing in this tutorial. So let's just review the settings for this slider. If you scroll down, you can see I have Hero Scene selected, and that's just a single slide slider. And I've also got full width selected. And then for the desktop large layer grid size, I have this set to 1024 by 420. Now normally this number would be larger here, 1024. But for the purpose of this screencast, I've set it to 1024 so everything can fit nice inside this little screencast window that I have set up here. So here's our slider, and this is basically 100% when the screen window is set to 1024. And if we were to go ahead and resize the window down, we can see that the slider is resizing down proportionally. And if we go ahead and resize the slider up, we can see that as the width increases, the height does not increase. And so this is the default setting, which means that no matter how wide the screen is, the height will never increase past this number right here, which is 420 pixels. But the drawback to that is our background image fits really nicely when we have the screen size at 1024, and also when we resize the window down. But as you can see, as we start to resize the window up, because the width of the slider increases but the height does not, in order to still display this image across the entire slider, you can see that parts of the image are getting cropped out. So this is often okay for certain background images depending on your slider. But for this particular image, it doesn't really work well because the main focus of the image here is this building, and it fits nicely when we have it at 124 pixels and lower, but starts to get cropped out as the window gets larger. And so this is how it would look on a large window with a full width slider. So if always showing the entire image and never cropping any parts of it out is important, there are two things that you can do to make sure that that happens. The first thing that you can do is to make sure that your image itself is originally resized to the same size as the layers grid size. So here in Photoshop, I've gone ahead and resized and cropped this image to 1024 by 420, and then I've uploaded it to my WordPress site. And then this also matches my layer grid size here, 1024 by 420. And the next thing you can do is from the slider settings, if you scroll down and click Show Advanced Size Options, we can click Respect Aspect Ratio, set that to on, and we'll reset our slider here. And now you can see that as we resize the window up, the height of the slider is also increasing. And so it's increasing in proportion to the width. So because we have this respect aspect ratio on, none of the image is ever going to get cropped out, and no matter how wide the window is or what size the browser is, our building here never gets cropped out. So for this particular image, this works out really well. Now let's just say that this isn't an option, where we can never have the slider above 400 pixels high. Maybe that's a requirement from the client. So if we head back to our settings and we turn Respect Aspect Ratio off, we can see that some of the image is going to get cropped, and there's really no way around that, but we can control what part of the image gets cropped. So if we head over to our slide editor, and right here where it says main background, we click on source settings. We can see right now that the background position is center center. So right now the top and the bottom of this image are getting cropped out as we resize the image up. So let's say that we're okay with cropping the top out, but we never want to crop the bottom. So over here in our source settings, we can set the background position to, should be center bottom, right here. And now if we reload the page, we can see that the top part of the image is cropped out and the bottom part is not. So for certain situations where cropping is going to occur, we can still control what part of the image gets cropped out with the background position option. So one thing I want to talk about briefly is we've been working with a full width slider so far. But if we were to have an auto slider, so from our slider settings, if we changed full width to auto for the slide layout, for this particular theme, where the slider has been placed inside the theme, the container is actually 100%. So even with an auto layout, our slider still takes up the entire width of the screen. But let's say that you wanted this to be a boxed area. Well, the way to do that is we could head over to our pages where we have the shortcode embedded, and we could wrap this shortcode in a simple div element. And we could give that div element a max width. So let's go and give it a max width of 800. And the closing tag, and then update. And we'll resize the window up. And now you can see that the slider is no larger than 800 pixels. If we resize the window down, we can see this is around 800 pixels right here. So what if we want this to be centered? Well, we can add margin 0 auto, and that will center the slider with a max width on our page. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at what we can do with this ocean city sky layer here. So I'm going to head over to the slide editor, and then I'm going to select this layer on the stage. And then right up here where you see the Behavior tab, where it says Align, you can see that this is aligned slide-based at the moment. And basically what this means is, as the slider resizes, this will always be aligned to the entire size of the slider as opposed to our layers grid. So if we were to go ahead and change this align here from slide based to grid based, and then go ahead and reload the page, as our slider width increases, you can see that now the layer is aligned to our 1024 grid as opposed to the entire slider. So this is really cool if you want your content to be confined into a fixed area as opposed to the entire width of the screen. And maybe that fixed area is more in line with other content on the rest of the page. So I'm going to go ahead and change that back to slide based. And now let's head back over to our slider settings. And if we scroll down, we can see that for our layers grid size, we have not only a desktop large option, but also a notebook, tablet, and mobile option. And right now, all of these are set to off. Now, if we were to set any of these to on, basically what they act as is breakpoints for the slider's resizing behavior. And at each breakpoint, the content layers will essentially reset. So right now, as we resize our slider, we can see that the content layer is resizing down along with the slider. And it just keeps resizing down proportionally. So let's go ahead and turn some of these special layers grid sizes on and see what happens to our slider. So I'm going to go ahead and set custom grid size to on for notebook, tablet, and mobile. And I'm actually going to enter the same layers grid size for notebook and tablet as I have for my desktop, because I want everything to resize proportionally all the way down until we get to smartphone view. Now, as you build your sliders, you can definitely enter different numbers here for your notebook and tablet, depending on whatever looks best for your slider. But for the purpose of this screencast, we're going to focus on the smartphone view. And so for that, that's the mobile section here. And so for the layers grid size, I've entered 480 by 420. So if we just save that and reset here, now we can see that once we resize down all the way to smartphone view, because we have a different layers grid size for that, you can see that our text layer suddenly resets to its original size. And so this is great for when you want text to be a little more readable on smaller screen sizes. And so this is what it would look like for an iPhone portrait view. And as we can see, that's a much better view than what we originally had. So we can compare this. We just go ahead and turn these off to this. Now once we have our custom grid sizes turned on, we can even change the position and font size of this layer if we wanted to as well. So to do that, we can head back over to our slide editor. And once we're in the slide editor, and once we have these custom grid sizes turned on, over here in the preview canvas, toward the top right, if you put your mouse up here, you're going to see some different viewports that you can select from. So the default is desktop, but let's go ahead and select the smartphone viewport, and then you can see that it shrinks the viewport down to our layers grid size for our smartphone view. And we can select this layer, and let's say that for the purpose of this screencast we just want to align this to the center of the slider. And maybe we want to bump down the text size just a little bit to, I don't know, 32 pixels. And we can adjust the line height to 48. We can save the slide there. And now if we reload the page in smartphone screen size, we can see that we have a new position for our layer and a new text size. And as we resize the window up and we head back into our regular view, we can see that the text layer heads back to its original position and its original font size, which resizes all the way down until it resets with our smartphone view. So adjusting layers position and also font size is great for the different viewports. But there are certain styles that will always be global. For example, this corner here. And as you can see, since we've moved this layer toward the center of the slider, the corner doesn't really look that great as when we had this layer toward the bottom of the slider. So one of the last things I want to show you, which is really one of the greatest things about Slider Revolution 5.0, is you can set the visibility for layers depending on the screen size. And so let's go ahead and select this layer and head up over to Visibility. And then for Visibility on Devices, for a smartphone, I'm going to set this to Off. And then save the slide. And if we reload our slider, we can see that layer is no longer visible. And as we resize the slider up, we can see that the layer is there. So what this allows us to do is create an additional layer that we can style however we want, and then set that to only be visible on smartphone. So let's just go ahead and move this layer way off the screen, because we're not going to be worrying about this layer anymore because we've set its visibility to off. And let's go ahead and duplicate the layer. And let's say we want this layer to be centered vertically, but we don't want that corner. So let's get rid of that. Over here in Style, Advanced Style, Corners, Sharp Right, we'll set that to no corner. And let's also go ahead and set the width here to 480. So this is now going to span across the entire width of the slider for our mobile view. And then let's go ahead and adjust the background opacity to 0.7. And we can even change the animation from this. So right now it's long from left, which was the same as the previous layer. Let's maybe have it drop in from the top. So how about long from top? And save the slide. And now when we preview this, we can see that the layer right here for our mobile view is dropping in from the top. And if we go ahead and resize our window up, we see that that layer disappears. Our original layer reappears, which is completely styled differently with a different animation, as we can see by reloading the page. And that's how you can really control content for different screens and different devices with Slider Revolution 5.0. Thanks for watching.